Hey guys, hope everybody's doing okay. I'm Austin Bouchillon, and I'll be giving my persuasive speech on the idea that global warming is caused by human activity. And originally, I had a PowerPoint put together for this when WebEx was the plan, but I'm gonna do it without it and try to illustrate it as well as possible. Um, Global warming is something that a lot of people disagree on in today's political climate. Your people that believe that it's a very real thing and that it's caused by human activity and that it's something that we can control. You have people that think that it is a very real thing. It's happening. Global warming is happening, but it's more due to the causes of nature and kind of just how the world works. They don't think necessarily it's due to human activity or it can be human controlled. And then you have another group that thinks that global warming is not a thing; it's a myth, and that's a real fraction of people too. So you have to keep all those arguments in mind. But in fighting that last argument on deciding if it's real, if it's significant at all, it is. I'm looking at a chart here on my slideshow, and I'll kind of try to describe it as well as possible. It's the global average temperature since from 1860 to the year 2000. So that's 140 years, and it's in Celsius. So the left side of the graph starts out at 13.5 degrees Celsius of the global average. That's the whole world's average temperature put together. 13.5 degrees Celsius in 1860. And by 2000, we were up to 14.4 of the global average. So almost a whole point, from 13.5 to 14.4. Some people think that 1 degree might not be significant at all in the grand scheme of things. What is 1 degree? But it's 1 degree is very, very significant. It's a great rise. It takes, just think about how much heat it takes to remember that Earth is primarily water. So just think about how much heat it would take to heat all that water, not to mention the land masses on Earth, to raise that 1 degree. And interestingly enough, the Little Ice Age, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, was caused by a drop in temperature of just under 2 degrees. So any change in temperature with is very significant. So, in arguing whether or not, well, now that we've addressed that it's a very real thing, it's something that's happening, it's been happening over the last 100+ years, we'll talk about whether it's human controlled. Is it something that we as humans can fight and help control? And it is, according to another chart. It's kind of the same concept. It's global temperature change. So since 1850, from the year 2000 and 1850, so 150 years this time, it changed 0.7 degrees, and primarily that is due to anthropogenic factors. And all anthropogenic means is it's a fancy word for human caused. Anthro means human, and genic is caused. So, the IPCC, it's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, takes a firm stance on whether this is human caused or not. Their statement is, human influence has been the dominant cause of the observed warming since the mid-20th century. And in a 2016 research published by IOP Science on the actual argument of whether it is human controlled or not, surveys of climate change experts and an analysis of over 9,000 peer-reviewed papers on the topic of climate change showed that over 90% of scientists and experts believe that global warming is predominantly due to human activity. So that gets us into another chart. On the right side, it says the scientific agreement is 97% agreement rate of climate scientists. 97% of them agree that global warming is human caused. But the public perception, on the other hand, it shows in this chart, only 45% of people think are even aware that such an overwhelmingly majority amount of scientists, climate scientists, agree on global warming and how it's caused. And this is significant because in the same research that I referenced from IOP Science, like I said, 45% of the public perception believe or are aware of scientists coming to this conclusion. And this is big because if people don't know it, if people aren't learning about it in schools early on, if teachers aren't teaching it, then students are never really made aware of this problem. And if students aren't made aware of this problem, unfortunately, they have to do research on their own. And again, unfortunately, not many people do. So that's kind of a big deal. We got to have everybody, on the same page and at least aware of the problem. Awareness is a big deal. And for 97% of scientists to agree, but only 45% of the general public knowing that they agree is, that's a big deal. Some of the limitations of this study that I found, a limitation is just, something that holds it back. And it was a very good study, but with any analysis of the peer-reviewed papers, the study may be mistaking composition for endorsement. And what I mean by that is anytime someone writes on a topic, in this case global warming and caused by human factors, anytime someone writes on it, doesn't necessarily mean they're endorsing it. A lot of times it does, but not necessarily. So that's one limitation with this study that you got to take into consideration. So the next slide, now that we've established that it's real, first of all, global warming is real, and second of all, that humans have a great deal of a contribution to this. We've established those two things. Let's get into how humans cause it and how we can control maybe some of the things we do. So another question that doubters of global warming may ask is, what are we doing to cause this? Believe it or not, some people are unaware of what deforestation is. Deforestation is exactly what it means. It's the clearing of wide areas of trees, forests, deforestation. So oftentimes these forests are cleared for roadways and other industrial facilities, which is great. Those are great things to have, but they come at a cost. Another great contribution humans make towards global warming is the burning of fossil fuels and carbon emissions. As the world burns a lot of carbon, we run off of a lot of carbon emissions, and that's something that goes into what we've been seeing over the last hundreds of years as far as global warming. And as I stated earlier, it's vitally important that students are learning about global warming early on, because if they learn about it early on, maybe they can make a difference later on in life. And in another study I found, in a study performed in California by Eugene Cordero in February of 2020, so very, very recent, 2 months ago, the carbon emission habits of students who completed an intensive university course on climate change were studied. And these are students in California. Results showed that students who completed this course generated 3.54 less tons of carbon emissions per year than the average Californian resident who didn't, take one of these courses. I believe that knowledge is power, and if we can illustrate this problem in academia, we can fight this problem of anthropological global warming head on. Another limitation of this study is that it was study of college graduates in California, and that was it. I would like to see it, studied amongst other populations in other states, maybe with the same type of class, and kind of get a wide array of results there and see what happens, I guess. And in conclusion, not only does the research show that global warming is a very real thing, it shows that global warming is something that is strongly impacted and enhanced by human activity. But I consider this good news, really, because if it can be enhanced by human activity, then obviously it can be greatly helped and lessened by a concerted effort by all of humankind. It's something that we're all going to have to do. Every country in the world is going to have to do to work together. This is the only Earth we'll ever have, and if we do not take reasonable measures in taking care of the world in which we live, then who will? Thank you.